Hello, hello, hello. Great timing for the dogs to start barking as soon as I go live. Hi. Um, last, last, last episode of Hell or the Inferno, and then I'm away for a month. Yay. Um, Again, still ill. Been ill for like that, 3 weeks. It is less than fun, but I go on holiday on Friday, so hopefully that will make things better. I get to go do awesome things and meet awesome people. There shall be lots of posts on social media about it, so keep an eye out. There shall be some spooky shit. Some spooky, some voodoo, some hoodoo. You do remind me of the Babe. Um, and then there'll be loads of gaming stuff and loads of horror stuff and all sorts of fun things. So keep an eye on my social media for things. I don't know. I might post stuff. We'll see. Anyway, um, the last 6 cantos of Hell or the Inferno, of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. We shall try and get through this tonight. I'm expecting this to be about an hour or so, I hope. I've not got much juice. Sad times. So yeah, grab yourself a drink, sit back, and enjoy the tale. Canto 28. Whoe'er in the words unfettered might at full tell of the wounds and blood that now I saw. Though he repeated oft the tale, no tongue so vast a theme could equal, speech and thought both impotent alike. If in one band collected stood the people all, or whoever poured on Apulia's happy soil their blood, slain by the Trojans, and in that long war, when of the rings the measured booty made a pile so high, as Rome's historian writes, who errs not the multitude that felt the grinding force of Guiscard's Norman steel, and those the rest whose bones are gathered yet at Separino. There were treachery branded the Apulian name, or where beyond thy walls, O Tagliacozzo, without arms the old Alardo conquered, and his limbs one were to show transpierced, another his clean lopped away. A spectacle like this were but a thing of naught to the hideous sight of the ninth chasm. A rundlet that hath lost its middle or side stave gapes not so wide. As one I marked torn from the chin throughout, down to the hinder passage, twixt the legs dangling his entrails hung. The midriff lay open to view, and wretched ventricle that turns the glutted alignment to dross. Whilst eagerly I fixed on him my gaze, he eyed me with his hands, laid his best brayer, and cried, "Now mark how I do rip me low." How is Mohammed mangled? Before me walks Ali weeping. From the chin his face cleft to the forelock, and the others all whom here thou seest, while they lived did sow scandal and schism, and therefore thus are rent. A fiend is here behind, who with his sword hacks us thus cruelly, slivering again each of his ream. When we have compassed round the dismal way, for first our gashes close ere we repass before him. But say, who art thou, that standest musing on the rock, haply so lingering to delay the pain sentenced upon thy crimes? Him death not yet. My guide rejoined, hath overturned, nor sin conducts to torment, but that he may make full trial of your state. I, who am dead, must through the depths of hell from orb to orb conduct him. Trust my words, for they are true. More than 100 spirits, when that they heard, stood in the fosse to mark me, through amazed, forgetful of their pangs. Thou, who perchance shall shortly view the sun, this warming thou, dear, bear to Dulcino, bid him, If he wish not here soon to follow me, that with good store of food he arm him, lest imprisoning snows yield him to a victim to Navarra's power. No easy conquest else. With foot upraised for stepping, spake Mohammed on the ground and fixed it to depart. Another shade pierced in the throat. His nostrils mutilate even from beneath his eyebrows, and one ear lopped off. One who with the rest through wonder stood, gazing before the rest advanced, and barred his windpipe, that without was all oversmeared with crimson stain. O thou, said he, whom sin condemns not, and whom erst, unless to near resemblance do deceive me, I aloft have seen on the Titian ground, call thou to mind, Piero of Medicina. If again returning thou beholdst the pleasant land that from Vercelli slopes to Macabo, and there instruct the twain whom Fano boasts her worthiest sons, Guido and Angelo, that if 'tis given us here to scan aright, the future they out of life's tenement shall be cast forth and whelmed under the waves near to Catolica, through perfidy of a fell tyrant, twixt the Cyprian isle and Beleriac, ne'er hath Neptune seen an injury so foul. By pirates done, or I gave crew of old, that one-eyed traitor, whose realm there is a spirit where fain his eye had struck lacked sight of, them shall bring to conference with him, then so shape his end that they shall need not gainst Foccara's wind offer up vow nor prayer. I answering thus, declare as thou dost wish that I above may carry tidings of thee. Who is he in whom the sight doth wake such sad remembrance? Forthwith he laid his hand on the cheekbone, one of his fellow spirit, and his jaw expanding cried, Lo, this is I wot of. He speaks not for himself, the outcast this, who overwhelmed the depth in Caesar's mind, affirming that delay to men prepared was ever harmful. Oh, how terrified methought was Curio from whose throat was cut the tongue, which spake that hardy word. Then one maimed of each hand uplifted in the gloom the bleeding stumps that they with gory spots sullied his face, and cried, Remember thee of Mosca too, I who, alas, exclaimed, the deed once done there is an end, that proved a seed of sorrow to the Tuscan race. I added, Aye, and death to thine own tribe. Whence heaping woe on woe he hurried off, and as one grief stung to madness. But I there still lingered to behold the troop, and saw things such as I may fear without more proof to tell of, but that conscience makes me firm, the boon companion, who her strong breastplate buckles on him, that feels no guilt within, and bids him on and fear not. Without doubt I saw, and yet it seems to pass me before me, a headless trunk, that, even as the rest of the sad flock packed onward, by the hair it bore the severed member, lantern-wise, pendant in hand, which looked at us and said, Woe's me! The spirit lighted thus himself, and two there were in one, and one in two. How that may be he knows who ordereth so. When at the bridge's foot direct he stood, his arm aloft he reared, thrusting the head full in our view, that nearer we might hear the words, which thus it uttered. Now behold this grievous torment. Thou who breathing ghost to spy thy head, behold if anyone else be terrible as this, and that on earth thou mayest bear tidings of me. Know that I am Bertrand, he of Bourne, who gave King John the counsel mischievous, father and son I set at mutual war. For Absalom and David more did not Ahitophel, spurring them on maliciously to strife. For parting those so closely knit, my brain parted, alas. I carry from its source that in this trunk inhabits, thus the law of retribution fiercely works in me. Canto 29. Ooh, that's sour. Ugh. So were mine eyes inebriate with view of the vast multitude, whom various wounds disfigured, that they longed to stay and weep. But Virgil roused me. What ye gazest on, wherefore doth fasten yet thy sight below? Among the maimed and miserable shades, thou hast not shown in any chasm beside this weakness. Now, if thou wouldst number them, that 22 miles the valley winds, its circuit, and already is the moon beneath our feet, the time permitted now is short, and more not seen remains to see. If thou, I straight replied, hast weighed the cause for which I looked, thou hast perchance excused the tarrying still. My leader part pursued his way, the while I followed, answering him, and adding thus: Within that cave I deem whereon so fixedly I held my ken, there is a spirit that dwells, one of my blood, wailing the crime that costs him now so dear. Then spake my master, let thy soul no more afflict itself for him, direct elsewhere its thought, and leave him. At the bridge's foot I marked how he did point with menacing look at thee, and heard him by the others named Geri of Bello. Thou, so wholly then, wert busied with his spirit, who once ruled the towers of Huefort, that thou lookest not that way ere he was gone. O guide beloved, his violent death yet unavenged, said I, by any who are partners in his shame, made him contemptuous. Therefore, as I think, he passed me speechless by, and doing so hath made me more compassionate his fate. So we discoursed to where the rock first showed the other valley. Had more light been there, even to the lowest depth, soon as we came over the last cloister in the dismal rounds of Melbourg, and the brotherhood were to our view exposed, then many a dart of sore lament assailed me, headed all with points of thrilling pity, that I closed both ears against the volley with mine hands. As were the torment if each lays a house of Valediciana in the sultry time twixt July and September, with the Isles, Sardinia, and Maremma's pestilent fen, he had heaped the maladies all in one fosse together. Such was here the torment, dire the stench, and issuing steams from festered limbs. We, on the utmost shore of the long rock, descended still to leftward. Then my sight was livelier to explore the depth wherein the minister of the most mighty Lord, all searching justice, dooms to punishment, the forgers noted on her dread record. More rueful was it not, methinks, to see the nation of Aegean droop? What time each living thing, even to the little worm? All fell, so full of malice was the air. And afterward, as bards of yore have told, the ancient people were restored anew, from seed of emmets. Then was here to see the spirits that languished through the murky veil, up-piled on many a stack, confused they lay, one over the belly, over the shoulders one rolled of another. Sidling crawled a third along the dismal pathway. Step by step we journeyed on in silence, looking around and listening, those diseased who strove in vain to lift their forms. Then, too, I marked that sat propped against each other as two brazen pans, set to retain their heat, from head to foot, A tetter barked them round, nor saw I ever groom currying so fast, for whom his lord impatient waited, or himself perchance, tiered with long watching, as of these each one plied quickly his keen nails, through furiousness over never abated puracy. The crust came down from underneath in flakes, like scales scraped from the beam of fish of broader male. Excuse me. O thou, who with thy fingers rendest off thy coat of proof, thus spake my guide to one, and sometimes makest tearing pincers of them, tell me if any born of Latian land be among these within, so may thy nails serve thee for everlasting to this toil. Both are Latium, weeping, he replied, whom tortured thus thou seest. But who art thou that hast inquired of us? To whom my guide? One that descended with this man, whom yet lives from rock to rock, and show him hell's abyss. Then started they asunder, and each turned trembling toward us, with the rest whose ear those words resounding struck. To me my liege addressed, speak to them whatever thou list, and I therewith began. So may no time filch your remembrance from the thoughts of men in the upper world, but after many suns survive it, as ye tell me who ye are, and of what race ye come, your punishment, unseemly and disgustful in its kind, deter you not from opening thus much to me. Arezzo was my dwelling, answered one, and me Albero of Siena. Ought to die by fire, but that for which I died leads me not here. True as in sport I told him that I had learned to wing my flight in air, and he, admiring much, as he was void of wisdom, willed me to declare him the secret of mine art, and only hence, because I made him not a Daedalus, prevailed on one supposed his sire to burn me. But Minos to this chasm last of the 10, for that I practised alchemy on earth, has doomed me. Him no subterfuge eludes. Then to the bard I spoke. Was ever race light as Siena's? Sure not France herself can show a tribe so frivolous and vain. The other leprous spirit heard my words and thus returned. Be stricker, from this charge exempted, he who knew so temperately to lay out fortune's gifts, and Nicolo, who first the spice's costly luxury discovered in that garden, where such seed roots deepest in the soil, and be that troop exempted, with whom Circassia of Asciano lavished his vineyards and wide-spreading woods, and his rare wisdom, Abagliato showed a spectacle for all, that thou mayest know who seconds thee against the Sienese. Thus gladly bend this will thy sharpened sight, that well my face may answer to thy ken. So shalt thou see I am Carpaccio's ghost, who forged transmuted metals by the power of alchemy, and if I scan thee right, thus needs must well remember how I aped creative nature by my subtle art. Canto 30. What time resentment burned in Juno's breast for Semele against the Theban blood? As more than once in dire mischance was rude, such fatal frenzy seized on Athamas, that he, his spouse beholding with a babe laden on either arm, "Spread out," he cried, "the meshes that I take the lioness and the young lion at the pass." Then forth stretched he his merciless talons, grasping one helpless innocent, Lycus named, whom swinging down he dashed upon a rock, and with her other burden self-destroyed the hapless mother plunged. And when the pride of all presuming Troy fell from its height, by fortune overwhelmed, and the old king with his realm perished, then did Hecuba, a wretch forlorn and captive, when she saw Polyxena first slaughtered, and her son Polydorus on the wild sea beach, next met the mourner's view, then reft of sense, did she run barking even as a dog? Such mighty power had grief to wrench her soul, but never the furies or of the Thebes or Troy, which such fell cruelty was seen, their goad and fixing in limbs of man or beast, as now too pale and naked ghost I saw that gnarling wildly scampered, like the swine excluded from his style. One reached Copocchio, and in the neck joints sticking deep his fangs dragged him, that o'er the solid pavement rubbed, his belly stretched out prone. The other shape, he of Arezzo, there left trembling, spake, that spite of air is skitchy. In the mood of random mischief vents he still his spite. To whom I'm answering, oh, as thou dost hope, the other may not flesh its jaws on thee, be patient to inform us who it is, ere its speed hence. That is the ancient soul of wretched Mirha, he replied, who burned with most unholy flame for her own sire. And a false shape assumed, so presumed the deed of sin, performed the deed of sin, even as the other there that onward passes dared to counterfeit Donati's features, to feigned testament the seal affixing, that himself might gain for his own share the lady of the herd. When vanished the two furious shades of whom mine eye was held, I turned it back to view the other cursed spirits. One I saw in fusion, in fashion like a lute, had but the groin been severed, where it meets the forked part, swollen dropsy, disproportioning the limbs with ill-converted moisture, that the paunch suits not the visage, opened wide his lips, gasping as in the hectic man had draught, one towards the chin, the other upward curled. O ye, who in this world of misery, wherefore I know not, are exempt from pain, thus he began, attentively regard Adoma's woe, when living full supply never lacked me of what most I coveted. One drop of water now, alas, I crave, the rills that glitter down the grassy slopes of Casentino, making fresh and soft the banks whereby they glide to Arno's stream, stand ever in my view, and not in vain. For more the pictured semblance dries me up, much more than the disease, which makes the flesh desert these shrivelled cheeks. So from the place where I transgressed, stern justice urging me, takes means to quicken more my labouring sighs. There is Romina, where I falsified the metal with the Baptist's form impressed, for which on earth I left my body burned. But if I hear, shut up, dogs. For which on earth I left my body burned. But if I here might see the sorrowing soul of Guido, Alessandro, or their brother, for Branda's limpid spring, I would not change their welcome sight. One is even now within, if truly the mad spirits tell that round are wondering. But wherein besaids me that? My limbs are fettered, were I but so slight that I each 100 years might move 1 inch. I had set forth already on this path, seeking him out amidst the shapeless crew, although 11 miles it wined, not more than half of one across, they brought me down among this tribe, induced by them I stamped the florins with 3 carats of alloy. Who are that abject pair, I next inquired, that closely bounding thee upon thy right, lie smoking, like a band in winter steeped in the chill stream? When to this gulf I dropped, he answered, here I found them. Since that hour they had not turned, nor shall ever. I ween till time hath run his course. One is that dame, the false accuser of the Hebrew youth, Sinon; the other, that false Greek from Troy, sharp fever dreams that reeky moistness out in such a cloud upstreamed. When that he heard, one, galled perchance to be so darkly named, with clenched hands smote him in the branded paunch, that like a drum resounded, but forthwith Adomos smote him on the face, the blow returning with his arm that seemed as hard. Though my weighty limbs have taken from me the power to move, said he, I have an arm at liberty for such employ. To whom was answered, when thou wentest to the fire, thou hast it not so ready at command, then readier when it coined the impostor gold? And thus he dropsied. Ay, now speakest thou true, but thou gavest not such true testimony when thou wast questioned of the truth at Troy. If I spake false, thou falsely stampest the coin, said Sinon. I am here but for one fault, and thou for more than any imp beside. Remember, he replied, O perjured one, the horse remember, that did teem with death, and all the world to witness to thy guilt. To thine, returned the Greek, witness the thirst whence thy tongue cracks, witness the fluid mound reared by their belly up before thine eyes, a mass corrupt. To whom the coiner thus, thy mouth gapes wide as ever to let pass its evil saying, me if thirst assails, yet I am stuffed with moisture, thou art parched, pains rack thy head, no urging wouldst thou need to make thee lap Narcissus' mirror up. I was all fixed to listen, when my guide admonished, now beware, a little more and I do quarrel with thee. I perceived how angrily he spake, and towards him turned with shame so poignant as remembered yet confounds me, as a man that dreams of harm befallen him, dreaming wishes if it a dream, and that which is desires as if it were not. Such then was I, who, wanting power to speak, wished to excuse myself, and all the while excused me, though unweeting that I did. More grievous fault than thine has been less shame, my master cried, might expiate, therefore cast all sorrow from thy soul, and if again chance bring thee, where like conference is held, think I am ever at thy side. To hear such wrangling is a joy for vulgar minds. Canto 31. The very tongue whose keen reproof before had wounded me, that either cheek was stained now ministered my cure. So have I heard Achilles and his father's javelin caused pain first, and then the boon of health restored. Turning our back upon the vale of woe, we crossed the encircled mound in silence. There was twilight dim, that far long gloom mine eyes advanced not, but I heard a horn sounded aloud, the peal it blew and made the thunder feeble. Following its course, the adverse way my strained eyes were bent, on that one spot, so terrible a blast Orlando blew not, when that dismal rout overthrew the host of Charlemagne, and quenched his saintly warfare. Thitherward not long my head was raised, when many lofty towers, methought, I spied. Master, said I, what land is this? He answered straight. Too long a space of intervening darkness has thine eye to traverse. Thou hast therefore widely erred in thy imagining. Thither arrived, thou well shalt see how distance can delude the sense. A little therefore urge thee on. Then tenderly he caught me by the hand. Yet no, said he. Farther we advance, that it less strange may seem. These are not towers, but giants. In the pit they stand immersed, each from his navel downward round the bank. As when a fog disperseth gradually, our vision traces what the mists involve, condensed in air, so piercing through the gross and gloomy atmosphere, as more and more we neared toward the brink, mine error fled, and fear came over me, as with circling round of turrets. Monteregion crowns his walls, even thus the shore, encompassing thy abyss, was turreted with giants, half their length uprearing, horrible, whom Jove from heaven yet threatens with his muttering thunder rolls. Of one already I descried the face, shoulders and breasts, and of the belly huge, great part, and both arms down along his ribs. All teeming nature, when her plastic hand left framing of these monsters did display, past doubt her wisdom, taking from mad war such slaves to do his bidding. And if she repent her not of the elephant and whale, who wonders well confesses her therein wiser and more discreet. For when brute force and evil will are backed with subtlety, resistance none avails. His visage seemed in length and bulk as doth the pine that stops St. Peter's Roman fane, and the other bones of like proportion, so that from above the bank which girdled him below, such height arose his stature, that 3 Frieslanders had striven in vain to reach, but to his hair full 30 ample palms was he exposed, downward from whence a man his garment loops, Raphael by a math sabi al mi. So shouted the fierce lips, which sweeter hymns became not, and my guide addressed him thus. O senseless spirit, let thy horn for thee interpret, therewith vent thy rage, if rage or other passions ring free. Search thy neck, there shalt find the bell that binds it on, wild spirit. Lo, upon thy mighty breast where hangs the baldric. Then to me he spoke. He doth accuse himself, Nimrod is this, though whose ill counsel in the world no more one tongue prevails. But pass we on, nor waste our words, for so each language is to him as to others understood by none. Then, to the leftward turning sped we forth, and at a sling throw found another shade, far fiercer and more huge. I cannot say what master hand had girt him, but he held behind the right arm fettered, and before him the other with a chain that fastened him from the neck down, and 5 times round his form apparent met the wreathed links. This proud one would of his strength against almighty Jove make trial. And my guide, whence he is thus requited, Ephialtes him they call. Great was his power, when the giants brought fear on the gods, those arms which then he piled, now moves he never. Forthwith I returned, fain would I, it were possible mine eyes of Briareus immeasured gained experience next. He answered, Thou shalt see not far from hence Antaeus, who both speaks and is unfettered, who shall place us there where guilt is at its depth. Far onward stands, whom thou wouldst fain behold, in chains and made like to this spirit, save that in his looks more fell he seems. By violent earthquakes rocked, never shook a tower so reeling into its base as Ephialtes. More than even than I dreaded death, nor than the terror more had needed, if I had not seen the cause that held him fast. We straightway journeying on came to Antaeus, who 5 ells complete without the head forth issued from the cave. O thou who is fortunate vale that made great Scipio heir of glory, When his sword drove back the troop of Hannibal in flight, who thence of old didst carry for thy spoil 100 lions, and if thou hast fought in the high conflict of thy brethren's side, seems as men yet believed that through thine arm the sons of earth had conquered. Now vouchsafe to place us down beneath, when numbing cold locks up Cocytus. Force not that we crave, or Titius help, or Typhon's. Here is one can give what in this realm ye covet. Stoop therefore, nor scornful distort thy lip. He in the upper world can yet bestow renown on thee, for he doth live, and looks for life yet longer, if before the time grace called him, not unto herself. Thus spake the teacher, he in haste forth stretched his hands and caught my guide. Alcides Hylam felt that grapple straighten score. Soon as my guide had felt it, he bespake me thus: this way, that I may clasp thee. Then so caught me up that we were both one burden, as appears the towers of Carisenda from beneath where it doth lean, if chance a passing cloud so sail across that opposite it hangs. Such then Antaeus seemed, as at mine eyes I marked him stooping. I were fain at times to have passed another way, yet in the abyss that Lucifer with Judas low engulfs, lightly he placed us, nor there leaning stayed, but rose as in bark the stately mast. Canto 32. Could I command rough rhymes and horse to suit that hold of sorrow, over which every rock his firm abutment rears, then might the vein of fancy rise full springing, but not mine such measures. And with faltering oar I touch the mighty theme, for to describe the depth of all the universe is no emprise to jest with, and demands a tongue not us to infant babbling, but let them assist my song the tuneful maidens, by whose aid Amphion walled in Thebes, and so with the truth my speech shall best accord. O ill-starred folk, beyond all others wretched, who abide in such mansion, a scarce thought finds words to speak of. Better had ye here on earth been flocks or mountain goats. As down we stood in the dark pit beneath the giant's feet, but lower far than away than they, and I did gaze still on the lofty battlement, a voice bespake me thus: look how thou walkest. Take good heed thy soles do not tread on the heads of thy poor brethren. Thereupon I turned and saw before and underneath my feet a lake, whose frozen surface like seemed to glass than water. Not so thick a veil in winter ever hath Austrian Danube spread over his still course, nor Tanis far remote under the chilling sky. Rolled over this mass had Tabernic and Pietralapana fallen. Not even its rimmed creek, as peeps the fog croaking above the wave. What time in dreams the village gleaner oft pursues her toil, so, too, where modest shame appears, the slow blue pinched enshrined in ice the spirits stood, moving their teeth in shrill note. Like the stork, his face each downward held, their mouth the cold, their eyes expressed the colour of their heart. A space I looked around, then at my feet, saw two strictly joined, that of their head, their very hairs were mingled. Tell me, ye whose bosoms thus together press, said I, who are ye? At the sound their necks they bent, and when their looks were lifted up to me, straightway their eyes, before all moist within, distilled upon their lips, and the frost bound the tears betwixt these orbs, and held them there, plank unto plank, that never cramp, closed up so stoutly, whence, like two enraged goats, they clashed together, them such fury seized. And one, from whom the cold both ears had reft, exclaimed, still looking downward, "Why on us to speculate so long? If thou wouldst know who are these two, the valley whence his wave Bisenzio slopes, did for his master's own their sire Alberto, and next him themselves they from one body issued. And throughout China thou mayest search, nor find a shade more worthy in congealment to be fixed. Not him, whose breast and shadow Arthur's land at that one blow dissevered. Not Boccaccia. No, not this spirit, whose overjutting head obstructs my onward view. He bore the name of Mascaroni. Tuscan, if thou be, well knowest who he was, and to cut short all further question, in my form beheld what once was Camisione. I await Calino, here my kinsman, whose deep guilt shall wash out mine. 1,000 visages then marked I, which the keen and eager cold had shaped into a doggish grin, whence creeps a shivering horror over me at the thought of those foreshadows, while we journeyed on toward the middle, at whose point unites all heavy substance, and I trembling went through that eternal chillness. I know not if it were all destiny or chance, but passing midst the head, my foot did strike with violent blow against the face of one. "Wherefore dost bruise me?" weeping he exclaimed, "unless thy errand be some fresh revenge from Montaperto. Wherefore troublest me?" I thus, instructor, now await me here, that I through him may rid me of doubt, thenceforth what haste thou wilt. The teacher paused, and to that shade I spake, who bitterly still cursed me in his wrath. "What art thou? Speak, that railest thus on others." He replied, "Now who art thou, that smiting others' cheeks, through Antinora roamest, with such force as were past sufferance? Wert thou living still?" "And I am living, to thy joy perchance," was my reply. "If fame be dear to thee, that with the rest I may thy law my name enroll. The contrary of what I covet most," said he, "thou tenderest hence, nor vex me more. Ill knowest thou to flatter in this vale." Then seizing on his hinder scalp, I cried, "Name thee, or not a hair shall tarry here." "Rend all away," he answered, yet for that I will not tell nor show thee who I am, though at my head thou pluck 1,000 times." Now I had grasped his tresses and stripped off more than one tuft, he barking with his eyes drawn in and downward, when another cried, "What ails thee, Bocca? Sound not loud enough thy chattering teeth, but thou must bark outright? What devil rings thee?" "Now," said I, "be dumb, accursed traitor. To thy shame of thee, true tidings will I bear." "Off," he replied, "tell what thou list, but of thou escape from hence to speak of him whose tongue hath been so glib. Forget not, here he wails the Frenchman's gold, him of Duera. Thou canst say, I marked where the starved sinners pine. If thou be asked, what other shade was with them at thy side, is Beccaria, whose red gorge disdained the biting axe of Florence. Further on, if I misdeem not, Soldaneria bides with Ganelon and Tribaladello, him who opt fenser when the people slept. We now had left him, passing on our way, when I beheld two spirits by the ice, pent in one hollow. That the head one was cowled unto the other, and as bread is riven up through hunger, the utmost did so apply his fangs to the other's brain, where the spine joins it, not more furiously on Menopolis's temple Tydeus gnawed, than on that skull and on that garbage, on its garbage he. O thou who showest so beastly sign of hate, gainest thou preyest on? Let me hear, said I, the cause on such condition that if right warrant thy grievance, knowing who you are and what thy colour of his sinning was, I may repay thee in the world above, if that wherewith I speak be moist so long. Num 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 num. Canto 33. His jaws uplifting from their fell repast, that sinner wiped them on the hairs of thy head, which he behind had mangled, then began. Thy will obeying, I call up a fresh sorrow past cure, which but to think of wings my heart, ere I tell want. But if words that I may utter shall prove seed to bear fruit of eternal infamy to him, the traitor whom I gnaw at, thou at once shalt see me speak and weep. Who thou mayest be, I know not, nor how here below art came. But Florentine thou seemest of a truth, when I do hear thee, know I was on earth Count Ugolino, and the Archbishop he Ruggieri. Why I neighbour him so close, now list. That through effect of his ill thoughts in him my trust reposing, I was taken and after murdered. Need is not I tell, and therefore thou canst not have heard. That is, how cruel was the murder. Shalt thou hear? And if no, if he have wronged me, a small grate within that mew, which for my sake the name of famine bears, where others yet must pine, already through its opening several moons had shown me, when I slept the evil sleep that from the future tore the curtain off. This one, methought, as master of the sport, rode forth to chase the gaunt wolf and his whelps unto the mountain, which forbids the sights of Luca to the Pison, which leans bracks inquisitive and keen. Before him ranged Lanfranchi with Sismondi and Gualandi. After short course the father and the son seemed tired and lagging, and methought I saw the sharp tusks gore their sides. When I awoke, before the dawn, amid their sleep I heard my sons, for they were with me, weep and ask for bread. Right cruel art thou, if no pang thou feel at thinking what my heart foretold, and if not now, why use thy tears to flow? Now had they wakened, and the hour drew near, when they were wont to bring us food. The mind of each misgave him through his dream, and I heard, at its outlet underneath, locked up the horrible tower, whence uttering not a word, I looked upon the visage of my sons, I wept not. So all stone I felt within. They wept, and one, my little Anselm, cried, Thou lookest so, Father, what ails thee? Yet I shed no tear, nor answered all that day, nor the next night, until another sun came out upon the world, when a faint beam had to our doleful prison made its way, and in full countenance I descried the image of my own on either hand. Through agony I bit, and they who thought I did it through desire of feeding rose over the sudden and cried, Father, we should grieve far less if thou wouldst eat of us. Thou gavest these weeds of miserable flesh we wear, and do thou strip them off us again. Then, not to make them sadder, I kept down my spirit in stillness. That day and the next we were silent. Ah, obdurate earth, why open'st not upon us? When we came to the fourth day, then Geddo at my feet outstretched, did fling him, crying, Hast no help for me, father? There he died, and even plainly as thou seest me, saw I the three fall one by one, twixt the fifth day and sixth. Whence I betook me, grown blind, to grope over them all, and for 3 days aloud called on them who were dead. Then fasting got the misery of grief. Thus having spoke, once more upon the wretched skull his teeth he fastened, like a mastiff's gainst the bone, firm and unyielding. O thou Pisa, shame of all the people who their dwelling make in that fair region, where the Italian voice is heard, since that thy neighbours are so slack to punish, from their deep foundations rise. Capria and Gorgona, and dam up the mouth of Arno, that each soul in thee may perish in the waters. What if fame reported that thy castles were betrayed by Ugolino? Yet no right hast thou to stretch his children on the rack. For them Brigata, Ugacione, and the pair of gentle ones, of whom my song hath told, their tender years thou modern Thebes did make incapable of guilt. Onward we passed, where others scarfed in rugged folds of ice, not on their feet were turned, but each reversed. There very weeping suffers not to weep, for at their eyes grief-seeking passage finds, impediment and rolling inwards turns, for increase of sharp anguish. The first tears hang clustered, and like crystal visors show, under the socket brimming all the cup. Now through the cold had from my face dislodged each feeling, as to were callous, yet seemed some breath of wind I felt. Whence cometh this, said I, my master? Is not here below all vapour quenched? Thou shalt be speedily, he answered, where thine eye shall tell thee whence the cause descrying as this airy shower. Then cried out one in the chill crust who mourned, O soul so cruel that the farthest post hath been assigned you, from this face remove the hardened veil, that I may vent the grief impregnate at my heart some little space ere it congeal again. I thus replied, Say who thou wast, if thou wouldst have mine aid, and if I extricate thee not far down as the lowest ice may I descend. The friar Alberigo, he answered he, am I, whom from the evil garden plucked its fruitage, and am here, replied the date most Lucius, for my fig. Ha! I exclaimed, art thou too dead? How in the world aloft it fareth with my body, answered he. I am right ignorant, such privilege hath Ptolemy, that oft times the soul drops hither, ere by Atropos divorced, and that thou mayest wipe out more willingly. The glazed teardrops that overlay mine eyes know that the soul that moment she betrays, as did I yield her bodies to a fiend, who after moves and governs it at will, till all its time be rounded. Headlong she falls to the cistern, and perchance above doth yet appear the body of a ghost, who here behind me winters. Him thou knowest, if thou but a new art arrived below. The years are many that have passed away since to this fastness Brancadoria came. Now, answered I, methinks thou mockest me, for Brancadoria never yet hath died, for doth all natural functions of a man eats, drinks, and sleeps, and putteth raiment on. He thus, Not yet onto the upper fosse, by thy evil talons guarded, where the pitch tenacious boils had Michael's anch reached, when this one left a demon in his steed, in his own body and one of skin, who with him treachery wrought. But now both put forth thy hand and ope mine eyes. I opt them out, ill manners were best courteous to him. Ah, Genoese men perverse in every way, with every foulness stained. Why from the earth are ye not cancelled? Such an one of yours I with Romagna's darkest spirit found, and for his doings, even now in soul, is in Cocytus's plunged, and yet doth seem in body still alive upon the earth. Canto 34. I thought there were 33 cantos. I've made a mistake. Please tell me there's only 34. Yes, okay, there's one more. Haha, I can't count. Last canto, canto 34. A bit of a longer one today. Oh well. Canto 34. The banners of hell's monarch do come forth towards us. Therefore look. So spake my guide. If thou discern him, as when breathes a cloud heavy and dense, or when the shades of night fall on our hemisphere, seems viewed from far a windmill, which the blast stirs briskly round. Such was the fabric that methought I saw. To shield me from the wind, forthwith I drew behind my guide. No covert elsewhere was there. Now came I, and with fear I bid my strain record the marvel, where the souls were all whelmed underneath, transparent as through glass, pellucid the frail stem. Some prone were laid, others stood upright, this upon the souls, that on his head, a third with face to feet, arched like a bow. When to the point we came, whereat my guide was pleased that I should see the creature eminent in beauty once. He from me stepped and made me pause. Lo, he exclaimed, lo this, and lo the place, where thou hast need to arm thy heart with strength. How frozen and how faint I then became, ask me not, reader, for I write it not, since words would fail to tell thee of my state. I was not dead nor living. Think thyself if quick conception work in thee at all. How did I feel? That emperor who sways the realm of sorrow at mid-breast from the ice stood forth, and I, in stature, am more like a giant than the giants are in his arms. Mark now how great that whole must be, which suits with such part. If he were beautiful as he is hideous now, and yet did dare to scowl upon his Maker, well from him may all our misery flow. What a sight! How passing strange it seemed when I did spy upon his head 3 faces, one in front of Hugh Vermilion, the other 2 with his midway each shoulder joined, and at the crest. The right twixt one and yellow seemed, the left to look on such as come from whence old Nile stoops to the lowlands. Upon each shot forth under each shot forth 2 mighty wings, enormous as became a bird so vast. Sails never such I saw outstretched to the wide sea. No plumes had they, but were in texture like a bat. And these he flapped in the air, that from him issued still 3 winds, wherewith Cocytus to its depth was frozen, as 6 eyes he wept the tears, adown 3 chins distilled with bloody foam, and every mouth his teeth a sinner champed, bruised as with ponderous engines, so that 3 were in his guise tormented. But far more than from that gnawing was the foremost panged by the fierce rending, whence oft times the back was stripped of all its skin. That upper spirit who hath war's punishment, so spake my guide, is Judas. He hath his head within, and plies his feet without. Of the other two, whose heads are under, from the murky jaw who hangs, is Brutus. Lo, how he doth writhe and speaks not. The other, Cassius, that appears so large of limb, but night now reascends, and it is time for parting. All is seen. I clipped him round the neck, for so he bade, and noting time and place, he, when his wings enough were oped, caught fast the shaggy sides, and down from pile to pile descending stepped, between the thick fell and the jagged ice. Soon as he reached the point whereat the thigh upon the swelling of the haunches turned, my leader there with pain and struggling hard turned round his head, where his feet stood before, and grappled at the fell, as one who mounts, that into hell methought we turned again. Except that by such stairs as these, thus spake the teacher, panting like a man forspent, we must depart from evil so extreme. Then at a rocky opening issued forth, and placed me on a brink to sit. Next joined with wary step my side, I raised mine eyes, believing that I, Lucifer, should see where he was lately left, but saw him now with legs held upward, like the grosser sort, who see not what the point was I had passed. Bethink them, if sore toil oppressed me then. Arise, my master cried, upon thy feet, the way is long, and much uncouth the road, and now within 1 hour and half of noon the sun returns. Was no palace hall, lofty and luminous, wherein we stood, but natural dungeon, where ill footing was and scant supply of light. Ere from thy abyss I separate, thus when risen I began. My guide, vouchsafe few words to set me free from error's thraldom. Where is now the ice? How standeth he in posture thus reversed? And how from eve to morn in space so brief hath the sun made his transit? He in few, thus answering, spake. Thou deemest thou art still on the other side, the centre, where I grasped the adored worm that boreth through the world. Thou wast on the other side, so long as I descended. When I turned, thou didst overpass that point to which from every part is dragged all heavy substance. Thou art now arrived under the hemisphere opposed to that, which the great continent doth overspread, and underneath whose canopy expired the man that was born sinless, and so lived. Thy feet are planted on the smallest sphere, whose other aspect is Judeca. Morn here rises when the evening sets, and he whose shaggy pyre was scaled, yet standeth fixed, as at the first on this part he fell down from heaven and the earth, here prominent before. Through fear of him did veil her with the sea, and to our hemisphere retired. Perchance to shun him was the vacant space left here by what of firm land on this side appears, that sprang aloof. There is a place beneath from Beelzebub a distance as extends the vaulted tomb, discovered not by sight, but by the sound of brooklet that descends this way along the hollow of a rock, which, as it winds with no precipitous course, the wave hath eaten. By that hidden way my guide and I did enter, to return to the fair world, and heedless of repose, we climbed, he first, I following his steps, till on our view the beautiful lights of heaven dawned through a circular opening in the cave. Thus issuing, we again beheld the stars. And there we go. Finishing of Hell, or the Inferno, by Dante Alighieri. We shall come back in a couple of weeks and we shall begin Purgatory. We shall read that, so that should be fun. Nice to see a bit of Troy getting in there, the birthplace of England, if you believe Geoffrey of Monmouth. And Brutus left Troy and raped and pillaged his way across the Mediterranean, landed in England, beat up a few giants, and founded England. Apparently. But yeah, so that was cool. Finally meet the three-headed Lucifer as well. So cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. As I say, in a few days, I am on a plane to New Orleans. So I'm going to do loads of spooky stuff in New Orleans. Yay! And then I'm off to Gen Con to do loads of gamey stuff and nerdy stuff. Yay! And try not getting COVID. Yay! So yeah, I should be back in a few weeks again, as I say, and doing some more of this. Links and everything will be in the show notes if you're watching it on YouTube, so you can actually see how badly I butchered a lot of the names and things. I'm not great at reading names and pronunciations and things. You can hear it in the podcast as well. I'm going to record a few podcast episodes so they can be released whilst I'm away. I hope. But yeah, we shall see. So keep an eye on the podcast for some more gothic horror tales. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.